Bonjour à toutes et tous, vous écoutez First Print, votre podcast comics préféré, pour une nouvelle émission au format Super Friends, enregistrée en plein Paris Fan Festival. On ne sait pas si ce sera vraiment un podcast du coup, mais on l'espère. On est avec Stjepan Sejic, qui est avec nous, donc le dessinateur de Harleen notamment, mais aussi de Sunstone, de Fine Print, qui a fait des passages chez DC par exemple sur Aquaman. Une fois le générique lancé, on sera en VO en anglais. Merci à toutes de nous écouter. So, hello, Stjepan. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm a little tired. It's the day 2 of the convention, and this is where it kicks in properly.
It's the first time that you are coming in France, so in consequence, it's also the first time we speak together. I have to start just by the very basic question. Could you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you came into being a comic book artist?
So I'm Stjepan Sejic. I'm a comic book artist, writer. I got into comics back in early 2000s when I started posting my work online and got hired by Arcana Comics to do our comic series called Cade, Son of Perdition. After that, I made my way into Top Cow, where I've been working on their titles, predominantly Witchblade, for about 50 to 100 issues altogether. And then after that, I kept jumping from one project to another with them, started doing stuff for DC, and just kind of carried on with making comics, really.
How do you choose your projects between the creator-owned stuff and the licensed characters and comics?
Well, at the end of the day, it comes down to this. If the creator-owned thing sells, it's going to be prioritized. Having a creator-owned book that's a genuine bestseller will earn you way more than any kind of character that's owned by a company, right? So, that usually gets prioritized. Now, having said that, I do prioritize when it comes to like company-style stuff. I basically prioritize the stuff that I actually want to work on. So, if they can sell me on a project, or if I can sell them on a project, that's what I do.
Yeah, and you're also known for a specific style in comics, which is mostly romance comics and LGBTQ thematics, which is something that I believe you were less able to do when you started your career. Maybe this is something. Maybe this is the reason why you chose to go into the webcomics industry to be more free in your thematics.
No, actually, the thing is. That whole section of my career was a completely unplanned situation where I had a burnout, where I've been working on Witchblade for so long, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had my own fantasy comic that failed in sales back in the day, and I was genuinely considering quitting comics and going into video games because I did some work with video games at the time. So I was like, maybe I'll just quit that. And in order to kind of rekindle the love of just doing this stuff, I made a secondary account on DeviantArt, just kind of started messing around, started making jokes about BDSM. And at the time, they had this weird policy where you couldn't show an erection on a man. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to draw 2 women. And I started drawing them. So that's how unplanned this whole situation was, right? And I started drawing them. I started drawing little jokes, and I was like, this is just for fun. There's nothing gonna happen with this. But then the characters started speaking, and then I started taking them seriously. Started writing, started researching some more, and then of course, when you start making a story like that, you get a lot of people telling you their stories, and then more and more and more, and you're like, oh my god, I could write such stories about these kinds of teams, and you start writing one. And you're like, I can't fit this element that I wanted to do, but I can do another story that handles that. And so one thing led to another, really.
Was it hard to be published with a story with a lot of sexual elements? Because we know that in the American comic book industry, there are some not limits, but always, publishers are quite shy to publish erotic stories.
Yeah, it wasn't hard. Basically, here's the thing: by the time I actually even considered publishing anything, Sunstone was basically 4 books done. I was writing the 5th book, and basically, I was talking to about it with Matt Hawkins, who was my boss at the time, but also my best friend. So we're talking about it. He's like, "Why don't we publish it for you?" I'm like, "I don't know. Like, are you okay with that? Because it's it's a mature romance." And he's like, I'll check it out. And they said it was okay. And also, like at the time, I think Saga was doing a lot of stuff with like sexuality and nudity in its comics. So like there was a precedent, right? And it was easy to convince them at the time, because when they saw the numbers Sunstone was doing with readership online, they were like, "What the hell?" So we made the comic, we started publishing it. It exploded to the point where it's now translated in like 75 countries in the world. Like, it's just such a massive series from something that really was just me dealing with a burnout at the time, which is just surreal.
So your advice would be just do a burnout. It will get you creativity. And
So here's the thing with a burnout, right? Burnout tells you that you've done a single thing for too long. So sometimes try something different. And that's what worked for me, and here we are. But my biggest advice is for people who have their little original characters that they do every now and then, and they're like, "Oh, look at my original character. They're so cool and everything," but you never do anything with them. Instead, you turn to fan arts. Give those characters a chance. Sometimes they'll surprise you, because that's what happened with me.
Yeah. Do you feel like this work on the webcomic scene has opened you to new readership? Because we know that Witchblade was majoritively read by men, which I believe your work is now a bit more open.
Yeah, so webcomic audience has a very, very, very large percentile of female readers. And that was the thing with Sunstone as well. It got a lot of female readership, and like that's the thing. Like in general, so here's the problem: American comic industry has for a while kind of put all of their eggs in the superhero basket, right? And they kind of let any other genre kind of either wither and die completely, or just kind of dwindle at the side, and that was a big problem, right? So you go to American comic store, predominantly you're finding superhero books, and people who are not into superheroes or don't want to carry 5 encyclopedias to understand what happened, they're gonna feel disincentivized to enter, right? And with webcomics, romance genre in webcomics is massive, and I mean, there are creators that make more money with webcomics than like you would ever imagine. There is no way you can make that kind of money in superhero comics, like no joke. Like on a very simple financial level, I always like to remind people of that, because I'm like, why are you people not making romance? They're like, because romance doesn't sell. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, you have stuff like Lore Olympus. That thing outsells anything I've ever done. Ever. And I am selling like crazy. Lore Olympus, my wife has a comic called Punderworld. It's the same thing, like this kind of a romance thing. She's got a slice of life. Slice of life genre in America, next to nothing. In Japan is massive. And that's the thing. It's like there is a problem with this genre diversity in American comics. Now, it's gotten better over time. Don't get me wrong. There's people all over there. They're like, okay, we're all kind of tired of superheroes. Let's try some stuff. So they do. Sometimes they succeed, sometimes they don't. But there is an effort, thankfully.
In a way, you managed to blend the two genres with Harleen. It was a mix of like a creepy romance comics and a superhero comics, and it was mainly a big success.
Yeah. So Harleen was basically, this kind of a dark thriller romance kind of a thing. Like this, I made this point before that Harley Quinn in general, her story is your dark romantic novel where a woman finds this man and he's dangerous, tall, kind of handsome, but also like really kind of like, he scares her, but she can help him. She can change him. And Harley Quinn's story is that, but what if she fails? And, instead of her changing him, her fixing him, he breaks her, he corrupts her. And that was one of the fascinating elements that kind of drove me into this idea of writing the story, where I'm like, I will take the tropes, I will take these elements, and I will explore them in a way that you don't usually do. And, it was a very intense and a very entertaining thing to make.
And still, because you had like some creator carte blanche on Harleen, but before I remember you were also doing the Aquaman, an Aquaman run. What drove you to this character? Because you said before it was always by choice that you would go do superheroes.
So I just finished Sunstone Volume 5 and took a break for a year before I started the Mercy arc because I needed to get my notes in order. So during that time, I decided I would pick up something, a palette cleanser, something different from DC. And I'm like, okay, I have a hole in my schedule. They're like, oh, good. So we want you to do Aquaman. And my first response was like, Aquaman, really? Because I never read the comic at all. No idea. I have known a few characters from it, but that's about it. So I'm like, I'm not really that interested. They're like, okay, hear us out. It's gonna take place, the whole series is gonna take place in Atlantis, underwater, in this imaginary kingdoms, and there's these weird things, and you get to draw monsters. I'm like, I get to draw monsters and design stuff, and I don't get to draw cars. I'm your man. Because here's the thing. I don't really use references in my work because they slow me down. When you're doing stuff that's like, you know, above the water, really, you know, you got to draw cars. What are you gonna do? Make up cars all the time? You're gonna get people who are into cars going like, what bullshit is this? You know. So I kind of tend to avoid it when I can, because I really hate drawing cars. I'm like the opposite Sean Gordon Murphy. Like, just no. He's like, yes. I'm like, no. So when they were like, you can do this, you can design this whole world, you can go nuts. I'm like, oh, okay, that I can do. So I got the scripts in, and I'm like, oh, I can work with this, because the scripts were very good, like very like kind of intense, high drama, high kind of intrigue. I'm like, all right, this I can work with. And also it had the character of Dolphin, and Dolphin was very interesting to draw because Dolphin couldn't speak. So basically it came down to doing a lot of kind of character work, character acting, and that's kind of my bread and butter. That's the stuff that I love doing the most, the expression, the gesticulation, all that stuff. With that character, it was perfect to do.
Yeah. When you started your career, your art and your design ideas for Aphrodite 9 or Witchblade were a bit more realistic and photorealistic in a sense. Nowadays, I think like maybe you found your final form as an artist with more plain colors and a bit of a mixture between comics and manga, maybe.
Yeah. So interesting thing about my stylistic influences back in the day was I had my own style, which is very similar to what I do now, right? This was before I got into comics. But then I discovered the internet at the time, and I saw the works of Mark Silvestri and Alex Ross. And basically my idea was, how about I kind of combine these two looks, right? And now the problem with that is I basically kind of forged a style and started working in it, but working with a style that's not inherently your own is like writing with another person's handwriting. It will work for a while, and then your hand starts slipping. And like people who read Witchblade, you can see the deterioration of the style over time, where I'm going closer and closer to my burnout because I'm constantly forcing myself to work in a way that's not inherently my own. And then I had my breakdown. I made Sunstone and basically refined what is now my current style and the only style that I work in, minus realism for covers sometimes.
I think there was the idea for a spin-off to Harleen. Was it something that was washed away in the burnout also?
What?
I think you wanted to do, or maybe DC wanted you to do a spin-off to Harleen.
So Harleen, from the get-go, my pitch to them was this. Harleen was supposed to be 3 books, the full ones, and each one of them was an arc. And the idea was to have each one of them end in a way where it's like, if I stop it here, it looks like a perfect ending, right? So there was supposed to be the second arc, the third arc. Between those, the big plan was Harleen 1, Isley, Harleen 2, Selena, Harleen 3, Sirens. So there was this whole big arc, big plan, right? But like I said, the problem is I'm working on 5 books of my own in a novel. So it's like, where do you fit it all in?
And do you still plan these books, or in another way, or is it over and done?
if I find a way to do them, I'm gonna do them because I already have them written, and they are way better than the first Harleen book.
Well, so why you don't like the first Harleen book?
No, I like the first Harleen book. It's just that I got better.
There's also a question that we love to ask nowadays. It's about AI, and especially still you're a digital artist. What do you think about the use of AI in the comics industry, and are you afraid of the ones that are using it?
I'm not afraid of it at all. I think it's trash. Like it really is. It's basically regurgitating and Frankensteining other people's art into some facsimile of what seems like a cool looking thing, but it's cool looking because it's like a combined Frankenstein of great people, you know, and it's a gimmick. It's trash, and basically it can only work in the hands of highly skilled artists, which is the irony of AI. Because you see a lot of these people who never had any idea, never really wanted to do art. Now they're like, oh, I'm an artist, I'm doing AI. It's like, okay, here's my edits. I need you to turn this guy around, but keep the rest of the things here and make them point there. And they can't do it, of course, because they don't know how to draw, how to paint. Now, a highly skilled artist will use AI to do that. Will basically copy paste elements. Will change, edit things. A highly skilled artist can make AI work for him. Now, I still find it as tainted art because AI is not ethically created. It's stolen data. It's what it is. Like, that's from the get-go. It was nothing but harvested stolen data without consent, without question. So any use of AI is to me completely unethical. And when I see people use it, I'm like, bye.
I had a question that's more of a fan request, but I remember when you did these drawings of Wonder Woman and Lara Croft some time ago, and you said it wasn't possible because of rights and everything. But if that were to happen, do you have a story in mind for these two characters?
Oh yeah, I have a fully developed story, and if that was to happen, that's one of the rare things where I would be like, I'm pausing everything, I'm gonna make this because it's gonna make me $5 million. No joke, like that thing would just sell on a level that's just, my God. Because, like, first of all, I really have a really good story for it, and second of all, like the virality of that, of how far that simple pile of fan arts has reached. Like, if I was to announce that happening, I'm like, pre-orders here, just crash everything. There you go. There goes the pre-order site.
Okay. And so for the next future, what are you working on? What can you tell us about your next projects?
Well, currently I've just now published in print, fine print, book 2. After that, 15th of May, I'm releasing Sunstone book 8. Then after that, early next year, I have Death Vigil book 2. Then after that, fine print 3, and then I'll see. Then I'll see whether or not I'm going to take a small pause, maybe do a DC project, just kind of to recenter myself. Hell, maybe even Harleen too, maybe Isley, we'll see. It's possible. Like I said, it's not. I want to make these books, don't get me wrong. It's just, you know, I got to figure out the way to make it work.
All right, thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure to discuss with you.
Thank you, pleasure as well.